Hey garden friends, this morning I am going to take you on a little garden chore extravaganza. I'm just going to do a bunch of chores with you. I had started this and I didn't have any sound, so I need to do the intro over. Also, I was removing the rusted leaves on some of my, I'm looking around to see if I have any more hollyhocks, because a lot of people get rust on their hollyhocks and they don't know what to do. I don't spray anything because it really doesn't work. We have hollyhocks all over this neighborhood that grow wild, and the rust is on them and it carries on, the spores carry on the wind. So spraying, all that does is kill the bugs. And even good pollinators like painted lady butterflies, they lay their eggs on hollyhocks and the larvae eat it, and that would kill them. So no spray, but I do cut off the uglier leaves. And by the time we're getting into high summer, like right now, it's July 1st, it doesn't seem to be keep infecting them. I just remove the leaves that were infected in spring, and then they look fine. So I'll show you how I do that. I'm talking to you while I'm doing it, but you won't be able to hear me, but you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Maybe I'll voice over on it, I don't know, but that's that. So let's get to doing our chores. So here is the leaf covered with rust, and I just go in and I take it back to the stem and I just cut it off, and then I put it in the trash or burn it. Many times I just go along the lower leaves and remove those. Let me get this verbena out of your way so that you can see more clearly, but let's get you in closer here. See this leaf here? This one is full of rust too. And there's leaves behind it. Many of the leaves all the way up are affected with rust. That doesn't bother me. The flowers are the show, not the leaves. I just remove the leaves to help with airflow and to prevent, the massive spreading of it. Now I'm going to show you some that I have that resist the hollyhock rust. Now, do you see the leaves of these? These are called oak leaf hollyhocks, a variety called Happy Lights. And if you will notice, these leaves have very little or no rust. And that's because this variety is rust resistant. So if you struggle with hollyhock rust, then try this variety. I got these seeds from Botanical Interests, and this spot right here, they get no water. These are volunteers in this area, and they've done beautifully. And I'll show you another one that I think the leaves are even more lobed if possible. So this one over here also is of that variety, and look how huge that leaf is, and yet it's free of the rust. So try these if you don't like the look of the rust on the leaves. Now the doubles are not of this variety, so I'm going to have to always struggle with those if I want them, and I do. So, and I don't mind the rust because, as I said, it's the flowers that are the star of the show and not the leaves. So now we're going to divide out some of these iris. This is too thick here. It needs to be separated. It hasn't been a full 6 weeks, but that's okay. This one is my main one that's going to stay. This is my Starship Enterprise. I had showed you in one of my tours. I'll put up a quick photo of it here. And then right now I am going to cut back the stalks all the way to the base, cut them back, toss them aside. A lot of times I'll chop them in little 2-inch chunks and let them drop to the soil, but right now I'm just clearing this out. I don't worry about cutting them at an angle as many recommend. I've never had any issue of whether or not it's cut straight across or at an angle. Just get as far down to the base as you can and remove them all. This was a very lush plant this spring, just put on beautiful blooms. I'm pulling out some weeds and some flowers that have faded. Some are California poppies that have gotten too thick. I'm looking around to see how far back I want to take the iris. I want it further back in the bed, not so close to the path where I'm standing. So I'm getting a visual of where I can chop my shovel in there to divide the iris. Some of the iris rhizomes may get cut in half, but that's okay. I have a ton, so it doesn't matter if some are damaged. So I just give the shovel a quick whack down there and separate some from the others. Put the shovel down in the soil, get underneath the roots, and lift. Iris are very shallow rooted, so they come up pretty easy, especially as this soil's moist and very loose, almost sandy. But it's the type of soil they absolutely love. Quick draining soil. So as you see, some of them did get cut right in the middle. Those will just pull off and compost. And the others, there's a good three rhizomes here. And those I will replant and or give away. So there's a few more I need to pull out to really give the space for other plants that I want. And I just pull them right up. They just come right up. And those are also complete rhizomes that can be replanted. And I think I've got it all pulled out as far as I wanted, and now there's some air space for the clematis that's up against the tool shed to grow. I have some sweet peas back there that I want to climb up, and I'm pulling out some other free-seeded flowers that I didn't want in there. And that's basically how I thin out my iris when I need more space. This is not a complete dig up replant. This is just me thinning this out. So I didn't dig up the whole plant. I left that portion right there because I want it to rebloom next spring, which it will just fine. So on to our next chore, and that is to tidy up the roses, whether it's spent blooms you need to cut off, or maybe it's some of these homely leaves that the sawfly had damaged, and I just trim off the leaves. I'm not going to trim off the whole branch. Sometimes I would for ease, but there's already new growth on this one. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's got sawfly damage on it. So we'll see. Now these, obviously they're singed, so something's going on with that, like a bug or something got in there, and I'm not liking that. So I'm removing those leaves. I forgot to bring my bucket over, so I'm just going to set these here on the ground. And find here is a spent bloom, and I'm going to take it down pretty far because this is a Olivia Austin rose, or Olivia Rose Austin, and it they send out tall canes for me. Well, Olivia doesn't seem to do it as bad as some of the other David Austin roses. Not bad, I should say, but in our climate they have a tendency to send out long canes rather than short and bushy. So when I trim them back, I try to trim them back harder than you normally would, like a tea rose or something. But shrub roses, the David Austins especially, do so well for me. Hybrid teas don't do well at all. So it looks like I had some, one of those rose weevils in here, because it's got little pinprick holes. And that's what they do. They lay eggs inside of the buds, etc. And I don't want to perpetuate the problem, so I cut them out. So this one too is looking like it's been damaged by bugs. So I'm pulling it out, even though it is beginning to get a flower bud on it. That's hard to do, but sometimes you have to be tough. So now with the shrub roses, sometimes I come in with just shears, and I just shear them back, especially as I have quite a few roses, and I learned that trick on the David Austin website, that they do that with their rose hedges. They just take hedge trimmers and trim them down after the first flush of blooms, and then they bloom out again. So it's nice to know you don't have to be too precious with these, you know, going down to a 5-leaf thing, bract on your rose cane, etc. You don't have to be that precious. This is not tea roses, show roses, anything. These are just some pretty shrubs that bloom gorgeously. This one's broken, so I need to cut it off. Now you do want to make sure you have good airflow in here so it avoids some diseases, but mine are doing just fine. I didn't even know I cut that one. I guess I did. So that being said, we'll move on to the next chore. I will show you one I am going to do with my shears so you can see how that works. All right, this is my Abraham Darby rose, and it has bloomed pretty, and I need to give it a good whack back. But instead of going individually, which I could, I'm just going to give it a good quick whack with my garden shears, and it will be just fine. So right here's a big section, and I will pick up that rose I just cut off and I will take it in the house. And that made quick work of that deadheading. And this will fill back in, be pretty. I will come in and individually pull out some of these leaves that have sawfly damage, but that is how, especially if you have lots and lots of roses, you make quick work of deadheading the shrub roses. So that was quick and easy. Let me get this rose. Isn't that beautiful? Just love this thing. Ooh, pretty. I'm going to take it in the house. Look at this. Isn't this the most gorgeous rose? I want you to see how big they are. Look at this, is my hand. This is Love Song. Now this one right here was out behind my mom's house, and when she passed away, I took it home with me, and then I'd seen one on sale at a local garden center, and I had to get it knowing how gorgeous this one was. And they are doing great in this barrel, and I just love them. That is the most beautiful lavender. It's not pink. I know in photographs I try to take it, they come out more pink, but just a beautiful lavender color. And the name of it is Love Song. I also have one called Plum Perfect that I bought to go with it. I just thought it would be a good foil. It's in another pot, and I need to bring it down here to put close to this one so they can bloom next to each other, but I'm enjoying this one thoroughly. Someone was asking me for an update on the tree rose that I planted in a pot, last winter. It came bare root, and here it is. This is a iceberg with a burgundy iceberg, so it's white, and this is really pretty. I love this. Fuchsia pink, and then a white reverse. You see it's white on the outside. Just gorgeous, and because this is the way the sun goes, it tends to want to lean towards it, so I keep turning the pot so that it stays upright, but I'm really, really pleased. It is loaded, absolutely loaded with flowers. So that is the tree rose. Now I'm going to show. Also, I wanted to show you an update on one of the Japanese maples that I trained. I did a video a couple winters ago, or was it last winter? A couple winters ago. And I was showing you how I tie down the branches to make it splay this way, or create the umbrella effect, instead of just going straight up. Now this is a seedling. I didn't grow this one. One of my friends did, and he gave it to me. And I have several that I've grown from seed that also I'm training this way so that they do this beautiful draping rather than going straight up. And you can see how well it worked. You can see all these are now trained and they stay by themselves. The pantyhose strips have all been taken away. And someone mentioned that they did this with wires, but I don't know about wires because that would cut into the limbs a little bit. It's a little harder. Pantyhose strips are so soft, and they don't damage the tree at all. I will take these little lower ones off. I'll trim these off. I keep those, I want the bare trunk. I keep them pruned back. So I'll put this back in its place. I probably need to get it a prettier pot. And for now, though, it's back in the corner with the others, and it just does fine. Now on this rose, we are going to tie it in. And what I mean by that, let me get my gloves on. And I do that with pantyhose strips. You see I've cut them into strips, set them right there. And I want this to wrap around this obelisk. And I'm also going to deadhead at the same time. And I want to keep the rose canes coming in. So first I will deadhead some of these roses off. And that will encourage it to put out new ones. I keep forgetting my bucket. I usually carry a metal bucket to put my debris in. It seems I'm getting a little bit of mildew on this one. But unless it gets really crazy, I don't do much to it. It usually will clear up. Now this is a clematis I bought to put on this too. And it seems to be doing quite well. Putting on new growth there. It's going across that section. So I'm just examining how I want this to work. So here is one. No, there isn't one there. I thought that was one. That was that rose there. But here's one that's starting to splay out this way, and I want it to wrap around here. So here's another one going that direction. So I'm just going to tie it over to that. Now when you have them going this direction, meaning horizontally, it'll throw up more canes to bloom. And they're called laterals. And the clematis is right here, and I may need to tie this a little bit differently. I'm going to try it this way. It's a little extreme. But if I get it to work like I want, it'll be perfect. So I'm just tying it where this cane is going horizontal. I'm kind of close to the tip. And it's hard to tie with gloves on. Let me see if I could do this without getting stabbed to death. Okay, fortunately the thorn is snagged on the pantyhose strip. Oh, mosquitoes. They're liking this cool morning air too. But you see, now it's going horizontal. It'll continue, and then it'll throw up laterals. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do one this direction and one that direction. And that way it's going around. Now this one, I'm not going to quite go so horizontal. This one is just going to be leaning this direction. And then as it grows, I'll tie it in more, like I'll tie it over there when it reaches. But this clematis, I just planted it when I moved these. I did a whole video on it, and on planting this test d'Iberville in these barrels, and I will link it. And I planted the clematis at the same time, and it bloomed. I get my clematis from Brushwood Nursery, and they have the most beautiful, like 2-year plants, and so they do many times bloom the very first year for you and take right off. Okay. I'm going to try and get a close-up of me doing this next one, a little closer up, and let's get going this way. So this one, I'm going to try and train this direction. I'm deciding how much to lean it down. I think that's good. Ooh, there are all these little black bugs on it. I wonder what those are. I'll have to look that up. I've never noticed them before, seen them before. But train this around, and then as it grows bigger, I'm going to keep winding these canes around the rows. There's a couple more. And I'm just going to tie these up, and then I'll decide how, yeah, I'm just going to tie those up close to it and call it good. Now, because the way the sun goes, they all seem to want to grow that way, and that's okay. You can train them to do what you want it to do. Just make sure you get them while they're still pliable and then train them up. Where they stay close to your obelisk. And another one out here. Yeah, that one I am going to train down this direction. You can actually, I'm not tying this one to the obelisk, I'm tying it to another cane back here. Because I know you can't see what I'm doing. But it'll keep it all going in that way. And again, I'm going to prune off or deadhead the ones that have already bloomed. And take care of that. Then I'll find out what those little black bugs are. Whoops. Surveying. And if, let me see, let me bring you down. You can see the sweet peas are starting. Now that they're getting more sun, they are starting to grow up. Can you see them right here? Here's one right here. And it's already climbing up. So those ought to put on some pretty sweet smelling blooms. It was kind of an experiment putting them in here. And I don't know how many took because the daffodils really were blocking their sunlight, but hopefully I didn't get my head in your way. But that's okay. I'm thrilled with the clematis and the way the roses just took off. I'm going to show you my other one. This one has grown even taller and done even better than the one I was tying up. And I think it's because it was already in a container and it hadn't had its roots eaten down off. I mean, the other one, when I showed you when I moved it, excuse me for stepping in front of the camera. I showed you when I moved it that how the gophers had eaten a good portion of the roots. And here's a sweet pea down here that I want to train up the obelisk. But, oh, I just noticed the clematis. Let me get a close-up for you. It's blooming. Look at that. Let's zoom in a bit. Isn't that gorgeous? I don't remember the name of it. I'll have to look it up on the video of which one I put in this pot, in this barrel with this rose, because each one is different. Obviously, the other one is an earlier blooming one. I'm not sure if it'll rebloom. I'll have to look them up. Some bloom on new wood and old wood of the clematis, and some just bloom the once. So I will find out if this is, or the other one, are the ones that will rebloom. But isn't that pretty? I'm just loving it with this rose. And as it matures, it will do even better and better. So this rose is doing everything I wished it to in this container. Let me level you up. So I'm thrilled with that project I did and how now the gophers can't get to it. So far, I'm thinking the gophers might have disappeared or they've really thinned out. I haven't had any troubles yet, but we'll wait all summer long and see how that goes. Well, the sun is coming over the tree, so I need to get busy or it's going to get too hot. So I'm going to plant the eryngiums and I'm going to plant some sweet peas at the base of, let me see if I can see, you can see it really quick. At the base of that little tomato cage tree. So we're looking at the base, and then I'll show you the after look, so to speak. So first thing I'm going to do, excuse my head, is I'm going to add some compost to the area. That's the organic turkey compost I get from the local turkey farm. Organic turkey farm. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. So I get it in bulk. We go take the truck over to a place that sells it, and I get a yard at a time, cubic yard. And it's a good thing because I make my own DIY potting soil, etc. So first thing, get rid of the weeds. Now I'm going to be really careful. Right here is two white swan coneflowers I direct seeded in here. I direct seeded like 6 and 2 made it, which that's a pretty good ratio. So I'm not going to unbury the cage there, tomato cage. I am going to spread the compost around it, and then I'm just going to put these in that. I got weeds I need to get out while I'm here. So I'm going to plant one. This one is called, this one's Chocolate Flake. I grew this one last year. Look at those roots. It really should have been planted sooner. I just haven't had the time, and there's several in here. This was, I think I saved the seeds from last year, or I had some seeds from last year, and I potted them up in this pot. And then I'll go ahead and tie them in to this tomato cage that I'm using as their support. And they will climb it. And I'm removing some poppies over here that I don't need, so that I could put in another sweet pea. And I'll do that one right here. This one is clotted cream. And that should do really well there. And I will make sure to water these in and tie them up. I may get another one and put it back there to climb out the back, up the back side. But I had tons come up that I potted, and I'm struggling to find places to put them. But anyways, so I'm going to spread carefully, because that's my coneflowers there, some of this compost. I'm going to leave this here. That way I have a place to step when I want to come in here and tend to any of these plants around here. And I know exactly where I can step. I'll weed around it a little bit more, but I want to put the eryngiums right here. Right here. And I'm going to plant all 3 of them, because I like there to be a grouping so you get a real pretty display. And I think they'll do great here and be pretty. I had grown, these are the ones I did a video on potting them up, and then I grew a bunch from seed. Let me show you those. And they have done beautifully, and I'm going to put them around the garden. But here's the ones I grew from seed, and then here's the ones I bought bare root. I didn't know if last year I was totally unsuccessful at getting my seeds to germinate. I don't know what I did, but this year I had a ton. Well, actually this year I did, I winter sowed them and they came up. So in the milk jugs that you cut in half, I did a whole video on winter sowing, and that the eryngiums, sea hollies, was one of the plants I did. And then I didn't think it worked, so I did another one. So I've got 2 bazillion. I probably should pot them up and give them to people. Hopefully this is focusing for you, because it's kind of, the sun's coming over and getting in the way, which I'm done here as far as working in the sun. Okay, 1, 2, and then I'll put number 3. Now I don't even know. I think the ones I grew from seed, and these ones are like a couple of different colors. Eryngiums do have different shades of blue or purple. Do you see the big fat carpenter ant? Yeah, so we don't get little ants. We get these big, huge monsters. Okay. So I will make sure these are watered thoroughly. It's supposed to be a super hot day. And I may even give them some shade just for today. Next week's cooling back down to the 80s. And so they should be fine. I am going to go get that other sweet pea, pot of sweet peas, and put those on the other side of the cage, tomato cage. There we have the planted eryngiums, sea holly, and then you see the tomato cage with the little pot on top. That just seems to add a little, I don't know, panache to it, rather than it just being these bare wires sitting up there. But I've done that for a few years and I've really liked it. Now I will secure the top of the tomato cage, which is facing down, on the ground with some garden staples. I make them with hangers and do them in use and just push them down into the soil, and you can see the eryngiums down there, which I will water, and then most likely I will shade them for today. I'll put a round cage around them like the one you see right over here, and put some shade cloth over it, and that way they won't go into total shock from being transplanted. Though they had good deep roots and they may be just fine, I just didn't want to risk it, torture them. And that, my friends, is our garden chores this morning. I still have to go around and pick up all the debris I left behind because I wasn't organized enough to carry my bucket with me. But I'll clean that all up, and then I'm gonna go get me an iced tea and rest a little bit. And during the day, I will come out here and there and check on things, but I don't spend too much time out here when it gets up to 100. But anyways, I hope you join me in my next video, and I should soon have a garden tour for you for this week. This is the middle of June. Well, yeah, middle of June. All right, I'll see you next time.